Hi, I'm Ruth Hoyt, and this is the January 20th, 2022 TexNEP meeting. And we're going to talk tonight. I'm going to be your presenter. And tonight my program is called I Talk to Birds. And so it's going to be about what I do, just sort of an overall view of what I do with birds. How do I get them to come to me, and what do I say to them, and what do they do for me? And I don't have lots of pictures for that program because I also wanted to share some pictures of my recent trip to Costa Rica. I'm doing trips to Costa Rica now, and just would love to share just a few of the pictures. I haven't even gone through all of them yet. So I think the first thing I have to do is share my screen and my desktop and go to, you should see a black screen. And
Yes.
now,
There we go.
so I'd like to share my new program. It's not too long, but that gives us plenty of time to talk about pictures and ask questions. I Talk to Birds. I'm sure most of you have seen this photo before. It's a picture of me with an Audubon's oriole. He came to the orange that was in my hand, and the photographer who was sitting in the blind got the picture of that as it happened. And his wife took a little video of me with this bird, and it stayed there for quite a while. But anyway, yes, I do talk to birds. So a little bit about this program tonight. I'm going to talk about how do I attract birds to me? What do I say to them? How do they respond? And then at the bonus end, we're going to look at a few of my Costa Rica bird photos from last month. So how do I attract birds to me? Well, the first thing I do is I set up a perch. This isn't pretty, and this is not what we want the bird to land on. Sometimes I use rebar, sometimes I use a stump, sometimes I use one of these welded pieces. But this is sort of like the foundation for what I do when I'm trying to attract birds to me. By the way, I took pictures. Some of these are cell phone pictures. This one is. I took pictures. I went out in the cold. I hated it, but I did go out. I went out this morning to the Laguna Seca Ranch with my new Canon R3 mirrorless camera. And I only used one lens, one camera. I made my settings, and the pictures that you're going to see tonight have had nothing done to them, nothing. They're raw photos, so they're not the brightest photos, and they're not cropped, adjusted, or anything. So you're going to see what I got, because I know people want to know, but let's go back to where we were. This is one of my perch holders. So what do I say to the birds? Well, they need food, water, a place to raise their young, and shelter. And so what I do to get them to come to me is at the water holes on the ranches, I give them some food. And so this is the top view of a stump that's got a hollow section in it when you look down on it from above. And you can see on the left and then up at the top, there's a little bit of suet that's just smeared in a hole so it doesn't show to the camera. And then I had some Pyrocantha berries. Here's a cactus, and I put one berry, stuck it on the sticker, and then put a little bit of suet. And of course, this does not face the camera. The birds see it from above, but the camera doesn't see it from the side. So how do they respond? Well, it was really funny because when I got to the blind this morning, it was really cold. And when I say really cold, anything below, I'm going to say 70 is cold for me. I like 80 and above, but this morning it was down in the 40s. So to me, that was awful, terribly cold. But the birds, as soon as I got there, I had a bag of peanuts for the green jays, and I had Pyrocantha berries, and I had some suet. I brought my goodies with me, and it's so funny. I'm in a different car. I'm not in my white truck. And I think they know me because they started gathering around before I even put perches up. They come and they land nearby. I had to hurry up and get my camera gear set up because I wasn't prepared for that greeting. I think they were hunkered down in the bushes and trees nearby, but watching. And when they saw me come up and get out and start moving things around. They started coming around. So I set up, this is with my Canon R3 mirrorless camera with a 600mm lens on it. It's an old 600mm lens. It's almost, I think it's almost 30 years old. I bought it used. And it does not fit the mirrorless system. It's not an RF lens. So I have an adapter with it. So it's not the regular 600mm lens that you would buy nowadays, new. The Pyroloxia came in. And like I said, these photos are raw. They're not cropped. They're not adjusted. This is what I saw with my 600mm lens. And there was a young Pyroloxia. This is a very young bird. I think he must have been a late chick because he's still got gray all over his beak. 2 green jays came in, and you saw the perch with the suet in the top of it. And when he went down to dig that out, he made a, it pulled up so you can see a little bit between the 2 birds on the edge of the perch. That was not visible when they approached. But anyway, right away, the green jays came and got into the suet, and I hadn't even put the peanuts out. So what I do is I place the food in hidden spots. I already showed you one example, but I want to show you the Pyrocantha berries. So the birds are going to eat the berries. Of course they are. They love the red berries, but some of the birds are not used to seeing these berries because they don't grow there on the ranch. I have a place where I can go clip some. I bring it to the ranch. It's not a native plant of South Texas. And so we don't grow them there, but I've never seen any come up as a result of the birds eating them. So I'm not worried that they're going to invade the ranch. Anyway, I put a little dab of suet behind the berries. You see the water in front of the berries, and then I'm on the other side of that water hole. That dab of suet does not show to the camera. Here's the other part of that branch. Same thing. This is when I first put it on. I took a quick picture, and then after I did that, I tamped it down a little bit so it was covered a little bit better. Well, as I said before, you put it in these hidden spots, the birds come look for it. And so some of the birds will go to the metal perch because that's bigger and heavier and not flimsy. So they go there first. And that's what this Pyroloxia did. The green jay figured it out right away. He found the suet and he jumped there. He also jumped on the top one, and that turned him upside down. I didn't catch that picture, but anyway, this is the kind of picture that you can get with putting up a perch like that. This one's a little dark, but like I said, nothing has been done to these pictures. I wanted people to see the pictures as they came out of the camera. This cardinal came and he picked one of the berries, and there he's looking at them. You can see the berry behind him has already been nibbled, and the one above him, they've had some nibbling done. This female cardinal was much lighter than the male, and or the green jay. And when she popped up there, she was very alert. She was, I don't know what she was looking at, but she did get right to the berries after that. And you can see the male down below. He's standing on the white metal part of the perch holder and chowing down on some berries. There's the first cardinal who picked the first berry. A lot of times they eat the suet first and then move to the berries, but she went right to the berries. So this is from another time. So those were all the R3 cameras. This one is a painted bunting, and this was taken this past year. And this is another way that I put up my my perches. I'll put a little piece of rebar. I have 3 different lengths that I use regularly: 1 foot, 1.5 feet, and 2 feet. And it depends on what ranch and what perch I'm doing. And so this picture shows that the birds will land on the rebar, but there's no food there for them. So they learn to go up and get onto the perch where you want them. This is one of the pictures that was used in that Journal of Wildlife Photography article that I just wrote. And there's one of my students who was visiting the ranch, and he wanted to learn how to do it. So it's hard for me to just let somebody else do it. So I went through it with him once, and I said, okay, I'm going to stay in the blind because when I'm doing this, I ask my ranch visitors, please let me know if you can see any suet. So we just traded jobs and he did the suet. And there's the long-billed thrasher. And on this particular perch, I used an acuajita, which is the Mexican wild olive. That's one of our native plants. When they bloom, they have the most beautiful white blossoms, and you can see all the veins and texture in the blossoms. However, if you're going to use them for a perch, don't do it on a sunny day because the white tends to blow out and the flowers tend to go limp very quickly. Even if you clip them and put them in a little water tube, even just having that water is not enough to keep them from going limp. So when I use the anacuajita, I do a very quick, have everything ready, put it up, get a few pictures, and within a matter of minutes, it's wilted. You don't see those pictures because I'm very particular about that. If I've got a group of photographers and we're using one of these, as soon as it starts looking a little bit droopy, I run out and take it down. Even if they don't want it to go down, I say, no, you can't go home with pictures like that. Okay, so now I'd like to show you some of the Costa Rica highlights. And I could go into a lot of talk on each one of these, but I don't think I will. Scarlet Macaws are a lot of fun to photograph. And I use a private guide, and they take us to places where we get opportunities like this. This one was from my previous trip to Costa Rica, but it's one of my favorite pictures, so I snuck it in. The rest of these pictures are all from December, and these are using my Canon R5 with the 600mm lens on a tripod. So we go to places where we get some perches set up, and we just watch the bird interaction and try to capture as many great moments as possible. These two were having a standoff, and the bird on the left was trying to grab the food that was on the bottom of the beak on the right bird, and he got it. I laughed when I got that because I didn't think I got it, because when he pulled away, it was on his beak, and he flew off with it. So on the left, we have the green honey creeper, and on the right, I believe this is the female of the last birds you saw, the scarlet rumped tanager. I get some of my tanagers mixed up. I know there's a palm tanager also, but anyway, the blue beak is one of the things that's a telltale sign of these tanagers. They're really pretty. Anyway, they were having a little standoff too. And, in the bird world, I'm going to say reading other birds and posturing is everything to them. And, the smaller birds don't really have a good chance against the bigger birds, but sometimes they take a stand, but this guy left. One morning we went out and did the raptor blind, and we got black vultures. We saw crested caracaras. The king vulture was our target bird. Oops, that was supposed to be in there. The king vulture was our target bird, and I did get that. Here we've got the blue Dacnus. I hope I'm saying that correctly. The male is on the right and the female is on the left. And I didn't get very many of them together, so I was really pleased to have that. There's that green honey creeper again. Here we have an oriole. The birds are prolific in Costa Rica, and you have to pretty much decide what you want to work on, because it's like a shooting gallery. Birds are everywhere. There's our king vulture. I love the king vulture. It's such a colorful bird, and I know they eat carrion, but I consider them to be Mother Nature's sanitation department. They eat all the dead stuff and make our habitat a lot cleaner. Here we have one of our toucans, and I did crop this one a little bit. His tail, I didn't feel added to the picture. It was a vertical picture, and I would have rather had a larger picture of the face than include the tail, which was dark anyway. But I love the blue feet. One night we worked on the long-tongued bats, and we set that up with flash, and we took turns because it happens so fast. We get a perch and hang it up, and if it's a flowering plant, these long-tailed, long-tongued bats will come and nectar from these flowers. Here we have an iguana. You never know when you're going to see one, so I went ahead and took the opportunity to get that. They're not staging or anything like that. What you see is what you get. And so sometimes they're in the thickest areas and you just have to work around that. Here we have the, let's see, is it the red-legged, oh my gosh, I'm blank.
Is that the honey creeper?
Yes, thank you. Yes, red-legged honey creeper. That's the male. The colors on this bird are so vibrant. Here we have another tanager, and this was just totally, he was in the bushes nearby and just watching the photographers as they were moving around and taking pictures. I like that one. It was very spontaneous. Here we have the brown-hooded parrots, and a flock of them came in, and it was fun to watch them because they're always interacting. They're very noisy, colorful. I'm going to show the next picture of one just sitting on a branch, and they're just not as colorful when you see them with the wings open, because when you see them with the wings open, they've got the blue undersides as well as the bright red in the armpit area. They also have a little red cheek patch. It doesn't always show. It's not showing on the right bird, but it is on the left. There you go. And this one has it showing. Here we have the keel-billed toucan. And there was a bunch of bananas, and I was ready. I was trying to get the bird in flight. And so I was really happy with this. This is a bird that I think I would like to draw this bird. It's, there's some action, and it's a big bird. It's colorful. There's what's not to like. Anyway, that was one of my highlights for the trip. I've got so many pictures, but I haven't looked through them all. So I'm just sharing just a little bit. Here we have the chestnut woodpecker, and this is the female. The male has a red patch on his cheek, but that one we didn't see but a couple of times. So I was really happy to get this, and it's in a natural setting. This is the female Curacao, and it was in the dark. I shouldn't say in the dark. It was during the daylight, but it was an overcast day, and she was in the understory of the rainforest. And so it was very hard to get a picture of them. They do move around, and of course you need a fast shutter speed to get that. And when you're dealing with the challenges of the rainforest, you don't always get that. We did do some macro, and I put the little green, the red-eyed tree frog. And this was actually taken during the daytime, but I made my flash the main source of light because that's when you see them at night. And so I wanted the picture to look like it was taken at night. It was daylight, people were walking all around, and he was just balanced on that little vine. Chlorophynia, I think is how you say the name of this bird. And that's just a really tiny bird. It's about the size of a warbler, maybe slightly larger, but it's a really small bird, very fast. And I was just happy to get him. This is the Costa Rica bird. It's the bird that represents Costa Rica. And when you look at it, you say it's a brown bird with brown eyes. Why did they pick such a drab colored bird for their to represent Costa Rica? But if you've ever heard one sing, they've got a beautiful voice, and I think maybe that had something to do with it. We do get the clay colored thrush is what it's called, and we do get those in South Texas. Most of them are closer to the river down by the border, but I have seen them on a couple of the ranches, which is about 50 to 60 miles from the border. So I think they're expanding their territory. But it was a lot of fun to get this bird because most of the time when you see it, it's drab colored and it doesn't do a whole lot. But this one postured and looked up and flared its tail. And I like that photo. This one is the crimson collared tanager. And again, you see that blue beak, and they have a bluish color to their legs and feet. And that was another one. We saw a fair number of them, but I haven't gone through all my pictures. I think I might have one in flight, but I just haven't gone through all my pictures yet. You take lots and lots of pictures when you visit there. This was a real highlight for me. I don't even remember the name of this hummingbird. If somebody knows, tell me, but it's a mama feeding the baby. The mama is on the left. And what would happen was this baby hummingbird would sit on this vine and just quiver, shake its wings and quiver and beg for food. And the mother would come, not very often. She only came a couple of times when I was set up there. We had to leave after that. But I was so happy just to get a picture there. That was really a highlight for me, having an adult hummingbird feed its baby, and it was all completely wild. I was a very respectable distance. It's quite cropped, actually. That's one of the neat things about the some of these mirrorless cameras. The Canon R5 is a 50 megapixel camera.
I think it's a long-billed hermit, Ruth.
Oh, thank you. Who said that?
Ken.
Thank you, Ken. I'm so glad you're here. Thank you, long-billed hermit. I've got that on the recording now too. Okay. Ora pendula was one of the target birds. It's a very large bird, but you don't always get them in really neat postures. And I like the way this one was. It was just standing there. It was leaning down, but it didn't jump down. It was just holding that position. And I just sort of enjoyed getting that. And Ken, you can probably tell me, this is the gray. I'm so sorry, I didn't have all my names on this. Anyway, we were in a backyard that had a little creek running through it, and this bird just came down and gave us a few shots, and then it flew away. So I was just happy to get a few shots. And I'm ending with the target bird that everybody wants. This is the female resplendent Quetzal, and this was a perch that was up where they live, up in the highlands. And so it's one of my favorite pictures. She's not as fancy as the male, but I think she's just as beautiful. And I liked taking pictures of her. Here is one of my favorite pictures from the whole trip. This is the male resplendent Quetzal, and he's eating one of the wild avocados. They eat the avocado and then they regurgitate the seed. And I don't know how they can do that. I mean, but they don't have hands to do it. They swallow it, and there are parts inside their throat, I guess, that separate the seed from the fruit, and they regurgitate the seed. And this is my final picture from my Costa Rica photos. This one had a different pose. You don't see the red on the breast so much like you do the other one or the avocado, but the tail on this one was so pretty. I just had to include two of those males. So I'd like to thank you for that and ask if anybody has any questions. Before we do that, though, I'm just going to put journalofwildlifephotography.com on the final page of my show, and then I'm going to stop sharing. You can either take a picture of the screen or jot it down, whatever you like, if you're interested in learning more about the journalofwildlifephotography.com.
So I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, but Susan suggested maybe that was a gray cowled wood rail. I don't know.
Rail, I know it was a rail, yes. And yeah, okay, gray cowled wood rail. Thank you.
She's suggesting that. I don't know that she's positive, but she got closer to me than I would have.
Well, a lot of fun photographing them, that's for sure.
Yeah. So Susan is also wanting to know, how long was your trip there?
Well, I did 10 days. You don't see any pictures from my last day. I stayed on an extra day with, I had two people with me who stayed an extra day, and we did a boat tour. And so I didn't include any of that. But 10 days, you fly there, you get checked in, and the next morning you're ready to go. And you shoot 9 days straight. And on your last day we stop and get a COVID test. You get your results in just a couple of hours, and then you're ready to fly home the next day. And so on our last day, we did or I should say my last day, we did the boat tour in the morning. We stopped at a roadside restaurant, had lunch, then we stopped for our COVID test, and then went back to the hotel and sort of flew back the next day. That's another whole story. I've shared that with Linda, so I can see her smiling. That was a little bit wild.
So
Yeah.
let me throw in here. Susan wants to know, what's the best time to visit, and what is the basic equipment you should be taking with you?
Okay. You know what? I'm going to just say anytime's a good time to go to Costa Rica. I'm going back in April, and I'm going back in December. I'm going to be making 2 trips each year now. And when I go back in December, I'm going to do 2 back-to-back trips with separate itineraries. So if somebody wants to go longer than 10 days, they could sign up for both trips. And there's a very little overlap. There's so much to photograph there. You can't do everything in one trip. You just can't. I know it just doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
I'm going next year. Well, anyway, yeah, I'm going to be doing a lot more trips.
Good. Ken's question is, are you having any noise issues with the 50 megapixel camera?
I use Topaz denoise with my camera, and I don't really get a lot of noise. I'll raise my ISO to 1600 or 3200, even 6400. 6400 is when I start really seeing the noise. And when I put it through denoise, even if you just put it on the auto setting in denoise, it might take out 5 or 10 units of noise. It does more sharpening than noise reduction because you just don't have a lot of noise in this camera. It's pretty amazing.
That's awesome. I'm going to ask a question for Diana. Her question was, what ranches? And so I'm going to get you to clarify that for me, Diana, because I'm not sure, unless you know what she's asking, Ruth. She just says, what ranches? And then her other question is, where can we purchase the berries?
Well, you can go to a garden center. Pyrocantha is common all over the United States, I think. I remember my mother had it in Missouri on one of her border gardens, and I remember those orange berries. But what I remember more was the thorns that are on them. They have long spines on them, and or not spines, thorns. And if you happen to be trimming it or doing something with it and you stick your hand in the wrong place, you're going to get stuck. But Pyrocantha can be purchased at not at a wildflower nursery because they're not native, but you can get them at a regular nursery, and they grow prolifically. So be careful what you wish for. I remember my mother had them, and they would sprout up on the ground. The seeds would fall to the ground, and they would sprout up, and she was always weeding. I do remember that. And I really wasn't a gardener or a birder at that time. I was just a kid, but I remember that.
Okay, so Diana did clarify, and she wants to know what ranches. I'm sorry.
Yeah, you mentioned the ranches that you visit. Are they here in the lower Rio Grande Valley?
Oh, yes.
And do you have permission? Do you have to have specific permission to go onto them, or what?
Okay, I'll talk a little bit about the ranches. I am a professional guide, a certified interpretive guide, and a Texas Master Naturalist, and a professional photo guide. I'm a workshop leader and tour leader. So that's sort of a plug, but it's not really meant to be. But it's how these ranches work. All the ranches that I work with are private ranches. I do some ranch consultation work also, and they're all owned by different individuals, which means they all have different rules. All of them, when I bring people to all of the ranches that I work with, the first thing they have to do is sign a waiver of liability. And each one has their photo blinds. They're different sizes, different shapes. Some are below ground, some are not. Everything about each ranch is different from the next. And so I work with several ranches. The Laguna Seca Ranch is probably the one that's, well, it's the closest one to my house where I guide people. There's another ranch down the road from that I don't even advertise. And that one's nearby my house too. But I work also with the Martin Refuge, the Santa Clara Ranch, and the Jones Alta Vista, that's out in Hebronville. They're all private ranches. They do have day fees. Some of them have housing, but most of them don't. The Martin Refuge and the Laguna Seca Ranch do not have housing, but the Jones Alta Vista Ranch and the Santa Clara Ranch do. Those are the 4 main ranches that people know about, but there are so many others that are doing this. I'm actually consulting with another, 2 ranches right now, and one is building photo blinds. He's already got the morning blind, the first morning blind mostly built, and is working on the second one. I'm going to be meeting with him next week for a couple of days. And another ranch, I'm just doing a documentary project for them. They would like to make a book from their ranch. And so this is how I get private ranch access. I mean, people know me and what I do. And so that's another whole project separate from my regular guiding. I'll be working on that project by myself. But if you're interested in learning more about the ranches, you can go right on the websites. But if you want to contact me directly, that's fine also.
Okay, let's go back to Costa Rica. Real quick question. Marcia would like to know, did you go to Torture Island in Costa Rica?
No, I did not.
Okay.
We did not.
Okay. And is it on your list?
Oh, everything's on my list. I mean,
Me
each time I go, each trip I do, we add different places. I have a coordinator and scout, and then the guides and the drivers, and each time we go, we're always looking for new places to go.
Okay. Betsy has a question. Can you build a perch in a backyard to attract birds?
Yes. Even if you don't have something set up permanently, I have something I call the perch bucket. And it's just a 5-gallon bucket. And how to describe it? It's a 5-gallon bucket. And in the center, there's a piece of PVC pipe. And you can decide how thick you want it to be, how the diameter that you want to be, depending on the size perch that you want to put in it. But anyway, it's very simple to make. And so you put in, you've got your bucket, you put your PVC pipe in, and then you pour about 2 inches of concrete in it. You don't want it to be too heavy, but you don't want your perch bucket to fall over. And what this allows you to do is set up a perch inside that PVC pipe. And so I have several perch buckets, and they have different size PVC in them. So if you have a thicker, stumpier kind of perch, that will fit in there. And if not, you have your thinner ones.
Okay, so you did not mention it, but I know your secrets. So Ruth has a YouTube channel, which she doesn't have a lot on it, shame on her, but she has a presentation called Creating Your Own Outdoor Photo Studio.
Yep.
So go look at her YouTube, because it's like an hour-long video, and she's gives you a lot of visuals, so that might be helpful. You've already done that presentation, but maybe you could do another one just on building perches, just something, because I think some of these Texas master naturalists would probably enjoy that. The other question is, let's talk about suet, because you usually, question is, it's not really a question, it's a comment. Is the suet or the bark in your setups, is it different than the basic recipe that we would get like at a grocery store? And I know you've shared the recipe before. Is it something smoother? Can you kind of give us some?
Okay. So I make my own suet. It's much better for the birds because there's only 4 ingredients. I do 2 kinds of suet. One suet is for feeding birds, and the other suet that I use is for photographing birds. And the main difference between them is texture. When I'm feeding birds, I don't care, if it's showing on the perches or in the trays or the boxes or wherever I put it. So it will have raw oatmeal, it'll have shelled sunflower seeds. It has all kinds of things that are gritty and have texture and fiber. Those are great for the birds in the winter. But when I'm photographing, I think you saw in those pictures that it's a very smooth, it looks like smooth peanut butter. And the 4 main ingredients are, you start with smooth peanut butter, white lard, and you melt that in a big pan or a nice pot, and it melts very quickly, so you be careful not to burn it, and it becomes like a peanut butter soup. And then you start adding equal parts of flour and cornmeal. I didn't give you any numbers because you can make it whatever quantity that you want to make. So if you want to put 1 cup of lard and 1 cup of peanut butter, you melt those, and then you're going to add probably about 3 to 4 cups each of your flour and cornmeal. It's about a 1-to-4 ratio, 1 being the lard, and 1 each of lard and peanut butter, and about 4 each of the flour and cornmeal. And while you have it warm, is when you add the flour and cornmeal, and it turns into like a pudding, a thick pudding texture and consistency. And you don't want it to be any thicker than that, because then it becomes like concrete when it cools off and hardens. But you don't want it to be mushy, because when you go to put it on your perches, it gets all over your fingers and you have a greasy mess. So there's an art to making suet, but I purposely don't really measure anymore, because you feel it when it's right. You want it to be like a thick pudding consistency when it's still warm, and as it cools down, you can put it into tub containers, little like Tupperware tubs or Ziploc tub containers, or you can put it in baggies, or you can put it in, if you're feeding birds just for feeding them, you can put them in the suet cages, and you make square or rectangle blocks of it, and it lasts forever. You can keep it in your refrigerator just to keep it out of your way. You can freeze it, but it's really good stuff. The birds absolutely love it. My birds in my yard don't eat the stuff from the store. I had somebody give me a whole box of those. I think there were 8 cakes, and I don't know what's in it, but it sat there. I put them out, and they were out there for 2 weeks, and the birds didn't touch it. I put one of mine out, and it was gone the next day. So they just really like it.
I'll suggest I recycle little sour cream tubs, like the 8 ounces, and
Yep.
if they're round, it's the perfect size that fits into the square cage. And you want to mark those that this is not yogurt or this is not sour cream, because when you have house guests and they go to open it, they're not real happy that it's like this not what they're expecting. So, but if you're not on Instagram, or you're not following Ruth on Instagram, go to @RuthHoytPhoto on Instagram. And what she does is she posts the photo, and then you slide it, and that second image, she always puts her settings, and it could be not what works for you, but it's a starting point, especially if you're a new birder. So with that, Ruth, I don't see anything else in here.
So if you don't have the TexNEP website, it stands for Texas Nature and Environmental Photographers, TEXNEP, but there is a dash in the website. So it's TEX-NEP.org. And the splash page, the home page, is what talks about what we're doing at our next meeting. And we've got several people lined up already. Thank you, Linda Nickel, for helping me with that. And so when you're seeing one program, at the end of that program, we'll be announcing what the next one is, because it's already planned.
And then just one more time, what's the best way that people can contact you?
Well, I'm on Instagram @RuthHoytPhoto. I have a website, ruthhoyt.com, and I'm on the Laguna Seca Ranch.com website as the main guide there. I'm pretty easy to find. I'd like to thank everybody for being here, and we will see you next month. Thank you very much for attending our January meeting. We'll look forward to seeing Kathy Chassie at our next meeting, and we'll see you then.